Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jim Cathcart.
Mamas, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys.
Hey,
Don't let
good morning, SCN, and welcome to Texas. How many Texans we got out there? Let me see your hands. We got a few. Well, I think that this is an occasion that calls for just a little bit of music. And if you're a singer, you might want to join in, because I'm going to sing what many would consider a cowboy anthem. Yeah. Blame it all on my roots. I showed up in boots and ruined your black tie affair. I was the last one to know, the last one to show. I was the last one you thought you'd see there. And I saw the surprise and the fear in his eyes when I took his glass of champagne. And I toasted you, said, honey, we may be through. You'll never hear me complain. Sing along. 'Cause I got friends in low places where the whiskey drowns, the beer chases my blues away, and I'll be okay. Yeah, I'm not big on social graces. Think I'll slip on down to the oasis, 'cause I got friends in low places. Thank you, and thank you, Garth Brooks. I tell you, I got to get back in uniform here. There. Ryan, would you come join me on stage, please? There he is, sneaking out from backstage. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
This is totally wonderful, and I love the group, and I love the energy, and I go back to Linda Miles and the early days of the National Speakers Association, so I know a lot of the roots that you're growing from. I have a couple of gifts. These are for the SCN library. This one is called What to Do. These are my two latest books. What to Do When You're the Speaker.
Awesome.
So this is not written on how to give a speech. This is written for speakers, about 54 lessons that I've learned over the years of what to do when the world goes against you and you still have to give a good speech, right?
Awesome.
And by the way, if anyone would like a free copy of this, over there on my banner, there's a QR code, so just click on that, put in your email address, and it'll be digitally downloaded. And I've also got them, of course,
Awesome.
for
Thank you,
people
Jim.
that would just rather give me money. And this is the foundation of my mentor program that I call the Experts Academy, Mentor Minutes, 336 life lessons.
Awesome.
And I hope you'll enjoy those and keep them in the library.
Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Appreciate you having me. Thank you. All right. Well, what we're going to be talking about today is not Texas. I forgot to mention that. I moved here in 2020 from California, 37 years out there. Originally Arkansas, but 37 years out there. And when I moved to Texas, I moved to become a Texan. I did not bring California with me. Not that there's anything wrong with California. I just wanted to be a Texan. I got here and I started going to rodeos and barbecues and honky-tonks. I've been on the lakes and the rivers. I've been to the university. I've been to football games, high school and college. I've been to the state fair. If they do it in Texas, I've done it. And I made a Facebook post that ended up being like 11 pages long of all the things I had done since I got here. And I said, am I a Texan yet? And a friend of mine took that to the House of Representatives of the state of Texas, swear to God. And they produced this and gave me a flag that had flown over the state capitol and said, you're a true Texan. Texas is proud of you. Boom. There you go. Now, that relates directly to what I'm here to talk about today. Being the person that would get the future you want to get, right? So let's talk about how do you grow and sustain a career at the top of your field, right? I've been a professional speaker full-time, as you've heard, for 48 years. And I've been in all 50 states for paid engagements, been around the world several times, 20 trips to mainland China in recent years, just before COVID and one after, and 25 major cities over there. So I've done all the things that speakers put on their to-do list and their wish list, and I can tell you there's still more to be done. But the reason I mention that is not to say, isn't Jim wonderful? But rather to say, been there, done that. I know what I'm talking about. I've proven it, and my colleagues have proven it, and I've known hundreds, thousands probably, of professional speakers and experts who have done many of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today, okay? So what is success to you? You don't need to answer aloud, but you definitely need to know in your own mind and heart, what is success to you? Is it doing lots of cool, exciting things and experiencing the world? Well, that's probably part of it. Is it money? That needs to be part of it because money is your permission tool. Without it, you don't get to do the things you've chosen to do, right? Okay? Is it reaching the top 1% of the field you're in? Well, if so, who's in the top 1% of your field? You know, you've chosen different paths as consultants and speakers and you know, the various specialties that you're involved in. Who's at the top 1% of your field? The better you can isolate those, the better you can emulate those, right? For me, it's National Speakers Association, and has been all these years. And that's me on the far right of that photograph there, the Cavett Award, which is our Spirit of the Founder Award. And that convention's coming up in a few weeks. So let's go back to your field and your particular specialty. What do you want? What do you want? Interesting thing is, those that can articulate what they want easily tend to get it more often than those who don't. Those who don't articulate what they want so that the rest of the world would know get what somebody else wanted by default. So how do you get what you? Well, I don't want to. I don't want to be pushy and tell everybody here's what I want. It's too selfish. There are appropriate ways to say things that don't come off as selfish. Learn how to let the world know what you want. When you're walking down the street and people are walking your direction, they're looking at you and wondering, what do you want? Do you want to go left, right? You going to turn? You going to stop? And so they adjust their behavior based on yours. In traffic, same thing. In business, same thing. At home, same thing. If you don't let them know what you want, you get what they want by default. That's why people put so much emphasis on goal setting. They say you gotta set goals. You gotta have a burning desire. Well, how do you have a burning desire? What are the 4 steps in burning desire? Well, first, there aren't 4 necessarily. To have a burning desire means first figure out, what do you desire? What do you really want? Write it down, because if you can't write it down, it's not clear enough yet. If it's clear enough, then you can articulate it in specific words, phrases, right? Okay? So figure out what you want, and then start arranging your behavior and your life choices and your priorities and your resources to make it more likely that you will get it. Because everybody else wants to know, what do you want, right? When they answer the door, when they answer the phone, when you step up to the counter at a coffee shop or sit on Santa's knee, go to the wishing well or talk to the genie, every one of them's asking the same question. That's why we need to be clear on it. So, what level do you aspire to? Do you want to be competent? Good enough to sit at the big kids' table? Excellent. So good that occasionally people say, whoa, that was good. Right? Do you want to be an expert where anytime you want to, you can wow people? You want to be a leading authority where other people are quoting you? Well, according to him, according to Bob here, da-da-da-da-da. That's the truth, right? There you go. Do you want to be a celebrity? Hey, it's part of the package. It's available. Star? Let's take an example. Me as a speaker, professional speaker, when I was starting out, Tony Robbins as a professional speaker when he was starting out. My goal was never to be a star. His goal was always to be a star. He did, and I did what I set out to do. I set out to become a leading authority. I wanted to be like my hero who was on the radio back at the time, Earl Nightingale, the Dean of Personal Motivation. Now, when it comes to guitar, I did not, although I'm a professional musician and entertainer, I do that on the side. My wife Paula and I perform under the name Resume the Boom. The baby boom. And so we do the music from Elvis through the Eagles and everything in between. And I set out to become a competent guitarist. And that's what I am. I'm good enough that I can hang out with the pros, with the excellent, the expert, the celebrities, and not feel out of place. But I'm not so good that they would pull me to the front and say, knock 'em out, Jim. Right? And that's okay with me. So you don't have to aspire to the top of this. Just choose the level you're going for. Because the level you're going for tells you how much you got to practice to get there. By the way, that's the private collection of the founder of Guitar Center, Ray Shearer, in Westlake Village, California. Oh my gosh. I walked into the room and he said to our little small group of people that lived in that area, he said, any of you play? I said, I do. He said, well, pick a guitar. So I walk over to the wall and he said, not that one. He said, that's the 1,000,000th Martin guitar. I said, I know. He said, pick another one. So I picked that one. And still, it was just absolutely magical. So when you determine how high you want to go, that tells you how hard you're going to work, or at least how complex it's going to be in getting there, correct? Okay. So how high do you want to go? Seriously, right now, please, in your own mind, choose. Pick the level you aspire to. Thank you. Here's the good news. I wrote a book years ago called The Acorn Principle. The acorn principle is the seed of your future success already lives within you. And you don't have to change you to become that successful. You have to improve you, I'm sure, but you don't have to change you. Nurture your nature, because your greatest success is going to come from what's already in there. So don't change, evolve to a higher level of you. In my company, this is the logo, and Cathcart Institute is basically the lengthened shadow of one individual, as many expert-based companies are, right? And I'm sorry, but every time I look at you, I think elevator. So, howdy, ma'am. Nice to see you. Good job last night. But Cathcart Institute, motivation, that's my speaking. Strategy, that's when I'm doing consulting. And then training is when I'm doing mentorship and working as a personal coach to the experts that I work with. But I want you to notice the logo itself, the symbol. The universal symbol of potential is the acorn. This one is natural colors. Why natural? Because it comes from your nature, right? So it's harvest gold, earth brown, forest green. And if you look at it closely, it's the letter C with a lowercase letter I triumphantly emerging from it. And the I indicates you, first person. So it's you emerging from your potential. So think through what you do so thoroughly that you can find a multitude of ways to articulate it, and they all come back to the same conclusion. They all start in the same place: who you are and what you want, right? What kind of speaker do you need to be, or consultant, to attract the future you desire? That's Cavett Robert, the founder of the National Speakers Association. What kind of speaker do you need to be? Well, when I was speaking in China on all these lecture tours, it was so interesting. I'd speak through an interpreter for up to 6 hours a day to thousands of people at a time. So every audience was enormous, and it was like a rock concert. Like, Rocky Balboa! You know, I'd come into the room, and everybody's on their feet and cheering, and music playing and all that. Wow, wow. So what would happen is the people would come up to me at the end, and they say, Mr. Cathcart, how I become a great speaker? What? How do I become a great speaker? And I used to give them what I thought were logical and reasonable answers, and then I realized there's a way easier answer. Become a great person and agree to give speeches. Now, you might say that's kind of flippant, but I'm actually dead serious about it. If you are a substantial individual in some way, others will want to know about that. Can you teach me to do that? Can you explain how that works? Can you show me the path? Right? And you can be awkward. You can stutter or mumble or have a speech impediment. You can be ugly as a mud fence, as my parents used to say. You know, you could be hard to look at. You could be obnoxious in other ways. If you're a substantial person in your niche, others will want to know, and many of them will pay to learn from you. So how do I become a great speaker? Become a great person. The speaking is just one of the skills along the way, all right? And by the way, when you look at an audience, just remember you are not up there all by yourself. Every single one of them wants you to do well. So be the kind of person they're hoping you are. Does that make good sense? Yes. Okay. See, 2 ways you can achieve any goal. One is like an arrow, shooting toward it, in which case all the accuracy, all the aiming, all the effort, everything has to come from you, the initiative from you, right? And that's fine because you have to do that on many of the things in your life. But there's another way that needs to go with it, and that's this one. Be a magnet that attracts what you want. Be the kind of person that would have that anyway, and whatever that is comes as part of the package. Develop in you the qualities that will attract the future you want. Now, the first time I heard that, I didn't hear it that clearly, but I heard it from Earl Nightingale on the radio. And so I decided I was going to become a professional speaker. I didn't know what a professional speaker was. I was a kid. This was 1972, Little Rock, Arkansas. I'd say a kid, a young adult. Newly married with a baby at home, 52 pounds overweight, out of shape, smoking 2 packs a day, no college degree, no money in the bank, didn't know anybody with money in the bank, never had. And I aspired to a very meaningless and ordinary life because nobody had ever told me, you know, you've got potential, you can do it. I mean, I was in a loving family, but I hadn't been encouraged like that. And so I was working as a clerk at the Housing Authority in Little Rock, Arkansas. And one day in the next room, Earl Nightingale was on the radio, the dean of personal motivation, a little 5-minute show. And what he said that day changed the direction of my life. Now, as I said, I was a clerk, but I was an assistant to Bob Moore, and Bob Moore wasn't busy. So my job was to sit there and be available 8 hours a day for $525 a month. And so I'm sitting there bored to tears. I hear this radio broadcast, and that was basically what he said. Become the person who would achieve your goals. Now that's me, actually. That is moi with way different hair. And the mustache, of course. And that was that picture was taken in 1978. But I want you to notice this guy, this speaker, had not received any awards, had not been all around the country giving speeches. He was basically a trainer who had started giving motivational speeches. And if I got $100 for a speech, I was thrilled. When I went to my first National Speakers Convention, there were about, 200 or 300 people there, Louisville, Kentucky, 1978. That's where this picture was taken. And I was so overwhelmed. Wow, there's Cavett Robert, there's Zig Ziglar, there's all these famous people. It was a big deal to me just to be near them. Interesting thing, and this is one of the things I've admired about SCN, the culture here. When I came up to the circle of veteran speakers who were talking to each other, little rosy-cheeked kid me, they opened their circle and said, "Come on in. Tell us about yourself." Thank heavens I didn't. I said, "I'm Jim Cathcart. I live in, at that time, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I've always admired your work, sir." And they got right back into a conversation hearing from them. Because I wasn't bringing strength. I was bringing interest. And so I listened a lot. And that's something I've noticed here. There aren't any cliques. Everybody's welcome in every conversation. Good for you. Good for you. So years ago, there was a man in Toronto, Mississauga, who called me and he said, "Jim, my company is named Tidy Car, and we do auto detailing. We sell franchises for $1,500. And we've signed up people all over the world, and we're starting to do seminars on how to build a one-person business. And I wonder if you'd come to Chicago and give a speech, do a seminar." So I did. So this was 1979. I went to Chicago, a few dozen people. I did the seminar. At the end, this young guy comes up to me, 19 years old. His name's Tim Seward. And he said, "Mr. Cathcart, could I sit with you at lunch?" I said, "Sure." So he's sitting there and he's got this, baby-faced, young, innocent-looking guy, looking like he'd never had a dirty thought. And he asked me 1,000 questions. And finally, at the end, he said, "Could I ask you one last question?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "Do you have a quote?" I said, "A quote?" He said, "Yeah, a slogan, a motto, a saying, something I can use to motivate myself every day." And I said, "No." I said, "No, I have something better." "What?" "A question." "Oh, what's the question?" "How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do?" So how do I find somebody I'd like? The person you'd like to be, the future you, not somebody else. Learn from somebody else, but let your role model be you, more evolved. "Oh, how would he said, "Well, I want to be the international sales leader for Tidy Car, because they're going to give a white Corvette to the international sales leader at the New Orleans convention next year." And I said, "Well, go for it. But ask that question every day." So he went home to Bay City, Michigan, where he had his business, and he changed out of his T-shirt and jeans into a set of coveralls with a Tidy Car logo on the back, Tim on the pocket. And he started doing a better job for every client, and he organized his files better, and he followed through more. And he even polished the inside of ashtrays when they had those in cars. And he really did a good job, and his business grew, and he had to hire other people. And he got so successful that he had to lease a service station, so he had a permanent location. So we'll fast forward. It's a year later, and Tim is going to go to New Orleans to the international convention, and they've called me to be the keynoter. So I go down there, and there's 2 keynoters, Dennis Waitley and me. And we go to the convention. It's at the Hilton in the French Quarter, and big audience from around the world, and a Corvette on stage. Beautiful car right there on stage. And so I finished my speech, and the president of the company says, "Ladies and gentlemen, What a competition. Let me tell you how the numbers went. He says the person in position number 2 led number 3 by only 1 point. 3 led 4 by 1 point. 4 led 5 by 2 points. 5 led 6 by 1 point. It was close, except for first place. The person in position number 1 led number 2 by 300 points. Welcome with me, your international sales leader, Tim Seward. The place went insane. They all loved him. They jumped up, they screamed and cheered, put him on their shoulders. People started hugging each other. A few people took advantage of that. It was just fun. And they got Tim to the stage, and he's caressing the Corvette as much as you can do that to a car. And I went over and gave him a bear hug, and I said, man, way to go. What did you do? He said, I just did what you said in Chicago. I said, specifically. What did I get so right? And he said, the daily question. How would the international sales leader do what I'm about to do? And he told me the story I just shared with you. Unbelievable. He said, it gets better. Yep. He said, I didn't know if I'd won, but I knew I had a shot. So I asked myself, how would the international sales leader go to New Orleans? I figured he'd go first class. One way. I said, no. He said, Jim, do I need a ride home? I said, no, but yeah, good for Tim. I said, how did you that's kind of risky. He said, I could have taken the bus back, but wow. Isn't that a beautiful story? So what he did was he sustained the mindset of the international sales leader as he took the actions that the international sales leader would, and they became habits. And those habits, that's the tipping point, led to his reputation expanding, which opened more doors to more people, more relationships, and the new relationships led to more relationships and a bigger future. So when you envision what you want, success for you, right? When you envision that future, that tells you who needs to want to know you. Not who do you need to know, not who do they know. Who do you need to be glad that they know you? Put that on your list long before you know how to do it. And by the way, goal setting should always be done with things you don't know how to do. I've had people say, well, I don't know how to do that. I can't set it as a goal. Excuse me, that's the point. Write it down and the answers will come, right? Okay? So what if you don't expect much? Well, back then I didn't. But I heard Earl Nightingale, and he said 1 extra hour a day and study in your field, 5 years from now, you'll be a national expert in that field. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. Well, hey, come on along, right? And so Nightingale became my, in a recorded package, mentor. And I listened to him every day for hundreds and hundreds of days. And my life evolved as I developed the new skills. And in 1970, I heard him in 72. In 74, I started selling his recordings door to door to businesses in Little Rock, just as a sales rep. In 1984, I was living in California. My phone rang. It was Earl Nightingale. I was afraid to respond. He said, this is Earl Nightingale. I said, which means this is Jim Cathcart. How may I help you? And he said, I read an article of yours that ought to be a recorded program. I published those. I said, believe me, I know. Short version of the story, that was 1984. In 1984, Nightingale Conant published my first audio album, done with Dr. Tony Alessandra, Relationship Strategies. And in 84 and 85, they sold $3.5 million worth worldwide. Wow. So when you look at speaking, I'm coming in for a landing here so that you're aware, Austin. Okay, when you look at public speaking, what is it to you? Is it speaking to big groups? Is it getting awards, being in the Speaker Hall of Fame, getting the Golden Gavel, or speaking at universities, or receiving honorary degrees, or doing podcasts? Is it TED Talks? Is it workshops? Is it performing on big stages? Is it giving a toast at a wedding, or actually officiating the wedding, having your name up in lights, right? Is it speaking on huge stages around the world? That one's Poland, by the way. Is it serious or is it playful? Is it working with interpreters or leading meetings or serving on a panel or answering from the audience or being on a radio show or developing recorded programs that are online, being a part of the audience? What is public speaking to you? The reason I show you all this is to say I really have done it, and so I know this works. It totally works. Public speaking is all about the presentations. Professional speaking is all about the outcomes. You take responsibility. By the way, any of you that are worried about capturing some of these images, I've given a PDF of all these slides to Ryan so that you can all get a copy of them after the program. You bet. So, like Janice Hurley said day before yesterday, expect more. Because what you expect determines what you get ready for, and what you get ready for determines the size of the future that's being attracted to you, right? Prepare your message, prepare the messenger. Your message needs to be something worth paying for. Your market, find out who they are, isolate them, and then get the mileage of showing up, doing anything and everything you can do in that marketplace. And ask yourself every day, how would the speaker I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? So there's my Jim is wonderful list of all the things that I've achieved. But I made a pivot in 2020 because of COVID and because we moved to Texas. I went from being primarily a keynoter to being primarily a mentor to experts. And so I put together all of this and started focusing on that to teach people how to be a professional, how to be more professional in what they do. Here's the question I would like you to know. Here's the statement I would like you to put on your notes every time you give a speech. What this means to you is, and then make sure that you answer that for every audience. Because when they find meaning in what you're saying, they'll put more value on what you're saying. The purpose of what we do is to make life better for people. So become a magnet for what you want. So I was speaking in Fort Myers, Florida in 1998, and a guy called me, a 39-year-old man named Tim Seward. He said, Jim, I don't live in Bay City, Michigan anymore. I live in Fort Myers, Florida, or Naples, Florida, and I would like to pick you up at the airport and bring you to my home for dinner. And so he met me at the airport, not in a Corvette, but in a SUV. And we went to his home where we dined by his indoor swimming pool. Yeah. And I said, tell me about your life. He said, well, I had a good run at Tidy Car. 2 years in a row, I was international sales leader. And then I formed a business serving Tidy Car people. And then I formed another business after that. And I just, since I'm 39 now, I just sold that business for $7 million. He said, and I moved to Florida, and I'm going back to school to get my MBA. I said, good heavens. I just got one question. Do you have a quote? I don't know, a slogan, a motto, a saying, something? He said, yes, Jim. Ask yourself every day, how would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? And let me play one phrase from a song that I think you'll enjoy, and then I'm done. This was a song that I wrote with Harold Payne, who's a professional singer-songwriter. How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? It's much better when you can see from a higher point of view. How would the person I'd like to be do the things I'm about to do? If you want to build a better world, be a better you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Woo-hoo. Thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll be over there and I'll see you. Take care.